saying, hey, we're just around for like a kind of a pseudo caffeine corner the other day because it was like somebody's birthday or something.
Yeah. I'm the
How was
big
your birthday, by the way?
1-7. It was really
17
nice.
plus
I
1,
appreciated
17.
that. Right? I appreciated everybody came by to sing happy birthday and have a grand old time with us. And you know, even though Mikey did completely try and derail and promo his own shit.
Which we're
I'm
perfectly allowed to
kidding. I
do.
love Mikey. I'm glad that he's getting a little bit more recognition for his podcast because I've seen it a couple of times and I've been in their live chat and it's a good time. It's good people.
We
So
doubled
as far
his
as I've seen
numbers.
so far.
Yeah, we doubled him. They had like 24 now. He's 50, which is kind of funny because people are like, Steve has such a huge, massive army of people. I'm like, I got him 25 subs. I don't have as much clout as people think I've got, you know. And I'm glad that he had a good
Yeah,
birthday.
except that I'm getting the credit for that because it was my birthday stream.
Well, that's fine. You take it. It's all you, man. But I remember on my birthday because I turned 50. I thought I wanted to kind of do a big birthday thing, but I was like, you know what? I'm just not. I don't feel like it. And you know what? I brought my birthday in with Sweet, and it was the best time. And so I enjoyed it, you know. And so I would have liked to gone online and celebrated my 50th birthday, but you know what? I wanted to spend it with Sweet Heathen. I thought that was nice. And Bullinator on his birthday, I wished him a happy birthday and everything, but I was so tired to go to, and I couldn't make it to a stream. But I did tell you how many times happy birthday. I was like, please forgive me.
Yeah, you got
not
it,
making it to
Steve.
the stream is not the end of the world.
No, I didn't make it to Chesh's stream, so it happens.
Yeah, that's yeah. By the way, you didn't. Yeah, because he was tired. So we all understand these things. I totally get it, man.
It's almost like life happens and a stream isn't the end of the world. Weird.
Especially when you do so many of them, right? And I've got a lot of stuff I'm preparing for because we have a lot of different shows that we're doing now. So it's not just like Caffeine Corner.
There's so much going on.
Yeah, I mean, like, what do you got coming up?
Well, we've got that time of the month coming up tomorrow. On Wednesday, Dapper and I are working a little bit more. We worked last night on it, and then we're going to work a little bit more on hashing out the logistics of how we're going to work D&D. And at that point, we may start actually sending out invites to who might be wanting to play. We've actually got most of the world sorted. I think we're going to probably focus and like villains and plot hooks. I think the next thing we're going to be probably working are the politics of the planet, because most of the cosmological politics are already written into the lore, so we're using most of that. There's a couple of things that you might, if you're a longtime D&D player, there's a couple of things that you might recognize or you might not even be aware of yourselves because we're pulling back from some old school lore. So
whatever just happened to getting a module like Forgotten Realms module or B1 A1 D2 modules, and you just play that way? Whatever happened to that? They don't do that any longer?
Oh no, they do. There's tons of modules. There's they've already written oh god, how many have they even written? A lot.
Oh yeah, I mean there was a lot when I was growing up. So I mean that was 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Literally 40 years ago. I was playing 10 years of age. We were playing D&D. I remember the first. It was a set. It was a B1 set, and it was called something with Keep or something. I don't remember, but it was a B1 set. It was pink. And it came with the dice, and you had your character pads, and it was basically, it would say okay, here's a map. In this room, you have a chest, you have a Cheshire, you have a chest, and then you have this much gold in it. You've got 2 orcs, that kind of stuff.
They have 17 published modules already.
A friend of mine actually made his own game. Like he made his own game called Amber and Shadow. And that was pretty cool because he used all D6, so that anybody could literally find dice. D6 are everywhere, even if you don't buy them. You get them in all kinds of games, and if you have enough, you could play this game. So,
yeah, but having a dodecahedron was just cool.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying a 20-sided die isn't cool. I don't think a 12-sided die is cool. They're all cool. I mean, it's just most people don't have those laying around, whereas people have D6. Laying everywhere.
There's already 17 published modules for 5th edition alone, and that does not include any of the setting like campaign books. So like it doesn't include like the Critical Role came out with a Tal'Dorei and like 2 books for just their world. So it's a campaign setting, so you can run whatever adventure you want in the setting, but it's not actually a module. So they've got Lost Mines of Fendelver, which kills the most players I have ever seen from a module. Horde of the Dragon Queen, Rise of Tiamat, Princes of the Apocalypse, Out of the Abyss, Curse of Strahd, Storm King's Thunder, Tales of the Yawning Portal, Tomb of Annihilation, Dragon Heist, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Hunt for the Thessalhydra, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, Dragon of Icespire Peak, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, the Lost Dungeon of Rickness, Big Rick Energy. It's a Rick and Morty, yes. And Rime of the Frost Maiden, which is set in Icewind Dale, which is kind of cool.
I need to find a decent online type AT&T type game. I've tried a few. Don't get me wrong. I play like Neverwinter Nights online. It's free. It's okay. I don't like the trade. I don't like the.
You tried Elder Scrolls?
I played. Let's see. I played EverQuest 2 a little bit, which is just like a World of Warcraft ripoff. Only it's a little more cheesy, but it's free. I have Path of Exile, but I haven't tried it yet because when I read on Path of Exile, it just takes so much to get into, and you have to be in certain seasons, and I don't want to invest that much time, and I don't want to do an MMO. I want straight just me playing. But I'll give you a couple games that I played that I thought were really good that were similar on those lines. I really liked Original Sin, Divinity 2. Great game.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they would have done a little bit more for some of the stuff you can do with it, but I mean, it's still a really good game. And Titan Quest was really good, that kind of game. But I need to find a really good.
Guy's right. There is a new Baldur's Gate coming out. Did you ever play Skyrim?
I have played Skyrim, but I didn't really get into it. I have it on the other computer. I don't know. I just really didn't get much into it.
You need mods. You need mods.
I have Oblivion. I played Oblivion and I played Morrowind. Have you tried Darkest Dungeon? No, never heard of it.
You might like that one.
I play the Boulder
It's different. It's different. I'll send you a
I can usually tell by the image if it's a game I would like to play, because again, I like the old crawler D&T type stuff. Like ever played the game? What was it? Oh man, Eye of the Beholder.
Oh yeah,
that series that was great. Oh my god, did I love that? It's a straight dungeon crawler type game.
Darkest Dungeon is legitimately a dungeon crawl.
Yeah,
like that's what it is.
Pretty fun. Is that free or cheap?
I don't think it's very expensive. Yeah. Let me find out. I'm pulling it up.
I don't mind getting a game, but I mean,
if he's never played The Witcher, yeah, you should play The Witcher.
I love, dude. Witcher 3 is the greatest game ever made.
It's okay. It's Canadian $27.99, so it's like $20 American.
Yeah, that's fine. I love Wisbin. The Witcher 3 is literally the definitive game of all time.
Witcher 3 was so good. Did you try the expansion pack?
No, and I haven't finished the game. I'm at the very end. I'm at like literally towards the end, but I haven't finished it yet. But I also have Witcher 2 that I haven't played yet. Right now I'm playing a game called Lifeless Planet, where it's like
there's 2 me's.
Hey, you know what? Hey, look, I'm Cheshire for the day. I'm going. You know what? I'll be back later. Give me 10 minutes at least. But that game, it's all it takes.
Show tits, make money.
Oh, girl, let me tell you, I would have no problem with whatsoever. I would be fine with it. I'd be raking in the dough, man. But nobody wants to see me topless, I assure you. Matter of fact, they pay me not to be. So I think most of my patrons pretty much tell me all the time, Steve, we're patrons to you. Please never get topless on air. But
the Binding of Isaac is a lot of fun. That's a dungeon crawl. Different kind of dungeon crawl, though. The Binding of Isaac.
What is it?
The Binding of Isaac.
Yeah, never heard of it. But Lifeless Planet is free right now on Epic Games, and it's just like a walkabout game. The puzzles are really easy. They're totally perfunctory, but they're fun, I guess. I mean, you gotta figure out where the hell to go. But no, I'm looking at this game that you show here, this Darkest Dungeon. That looks pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah,
It's like
I think you'd
$5
like
on
it.
Steam right now.
Nice. Tom,
Right.
you do not feel
that's
like you need
Color
to play Witcher 1 or 2 to play 3. You can jump right into 3. Just go in. Just go for it. It is a romping good time.
Witcher 3, yeah. I love that game. Just totally love it.
You don't have to play 1 and 2 to get. Yeah.
The graphics outstanding. I mean, so immersive.
One of the things I liked about it is that it used multiple colors. So like Skyrim, everything is like white and gray because you're up north. It makes sense. But in The Witcher, everything there's like yellows and purples and blues, and not everything is just dark and grimy. It's actually pretty and nice. Like I kind of want to be here. Like I don't want to live in Skyrim. Skyrim seems like a shitty place to live.
Yeah, it's all white, gray, and black. But no, Wizbiz asked me, do I have an interest in Cyberpunk 2020? I have Cyberpunk 2020, but it's not out until November now. It's supposed to be released in September. But
you mean 2077?
2077, yeah. Cyberpunk 2077. They pushed it back to November. So I have it pre-ordered. Somebody had actually got it for me. Which, by the way, thank you for that. People have gotten me getting games, and I thank them. But I do remember I do have that game ready to play, pre-order because of that, and I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, it's not going to be released until probably November now. But I like the. I mean, there's some free games that I'll play that like Fishing Planet. It's pretty cool. APT, the game. There's a shooting game.
People have been telling me that I need to teach you how to play League of Legends.
See, I don't think I don't know, man. Again, I don't like the online stuff with other people.
I am the same way. If we do that. Which I think we should just for the lulz, like just for the you're not gonna probably get into it. You're not gonna just that
Maybe.
Train wreck of a situation. It would have to be streamed. It has to be.
Maybe
you're gonna just look at the champion list and be like, oh my god, why are there so many champions?
I was really good as you know as World of Warcraft, right? Literally humble bragging. I was one of the best mages on my server. I was rated number 2, so I was the second best mage on my server. I had the most amount of kills. I led 40 people on PvP teams. We cycle people out because you only have 10 at a time. But I had 40 people on my Discord server that we would pick and choose for the tank and for the healing, and we got 2000s, high 2000s, stuff like that. But that takes a lot of time and effort to get that good at a game, right? And a lot of time.
We need to get a group together and sit around and play Uno.
Uno. Why Uno?
That would be savage.
Why Uno?
Because Uno is a savage game. Have you never played Uno?
Of course I played Uno. Yeah, well, card games I play. Look, I play every card game known to man pretty much except for bridge. I mean, I play spades, I play euchre, I played pinochle, I played cribbage.
I used to be really good at euchre.
It's been a long time since I played pinochle, but I played euchre. Yep. I mean, when you're in the military, you play a lot of card games. You just learn how to play a lot of card games.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, I played canasta long before I ever was in the military.
I did not play, what is it, pinochle, because that deck is not the same.
Yeah, it requires a special deck.
It requires a special deck.
See, Chad agrees with me. Uno. They know what's up. We're on day 397. I just want to point that out real quick.
Yep. Well, I was going to have a 1-year anniversary, but again, couldn't stream because, somebody false DMCA'd me, which, by the way, is a proven fact. I mean, there's no question about it. I was fraudulently DMCA'd. But yeah, 3 more days will be 400 freaking days. You believe that? What was the promise made again? Hey, Balloonator, what was the promise?
That you would get paid what you were owed.
Oh, I would get paid
that promise.
Owed, but so wait, where's the money?
That didn't age well.
That didn't age well at all.
I think the money's up his nose, to be honest.
I don't know where the money's at, but I gotta tell you this: anybody that associates with somebody who has literally been says that hey, look, you're going to pay somebody and they don't, and then they get found liable for fraud. I don't know, man. I just think it's kind of odd to myself. I mean, I'm not judging.
I don't know. I saw.
Where's the money? Somebody stole money. I don't get it.
Somebody sent me the greatest screenshot I have ever seen of an example of somebody white knighting and ad homing somebody. It was It was beautiful. We'll have to bring it up maybe for next time, and we'll do like kind of like a review of some of the fallacies we've talked about before.
I'd be into that.
I'll get the screenshots. It was like wow.
They were white knighting Anaheim at the same time.
Yeah. So somebody was talking about they used a word that people are not a big fan of people using on the vanilla internet, and they were justifying their use of the word by saying that, well, it means this, I was using it in this regard, so I should be justified in using it. And then people were talking about like lexicons and like why it would and why it wouldn't, and whether or not they were actually meaning it in that way, and and GE's wife was like way in over her head in this conversation, and somebody came into White Knight for her by saying the person had some kind of sexual deviancy. It was Jimmy. And so, okay, if here's the thing.
There you go.
I don't know whether or not that person does have any kind of sexual criminality in their history. I don't know. But you want to know what that has absolutely nothing to do with? Language.
No, I mean they'll find anything. I mean, look, none of that crowd are the arbiters of morality. That's for damn sure. I mean, I am definitely going to the day I die hold all of them accountable personally for things that have happened. I mean, they enabled. They're definitely not without blame. But it's just like the 397 days when somebody says that, hey, yes, I owe you money and you'll get paid, and they promise thousands of people it, and then they renege on that, and they basically say, you know what money? You're a liar. You're just an outright liar at that point. And I just find it hilarious that people are like still propping him up. It's like, and yet it was funniest part is how much money did they give him for basically nothing? I mean, it's like what the hell do they think that's gonna do?
I find it ironic that you've got somebody like Jimmy who is supposedly is like one of the main staples of his channel is being sexually liberal, like freedom of sexual expression, with obvious with rules, with like boundaries, but consenting adults are consenting adults. But his first thing that he always goes to is attacking somebody's sexuality. Remember the gourd thing? This guy's attracted to pump. Yeah, that was dumb. But like it's like every single time that's the guy's go-to, and it's kind of bizarre to me.
But look how many people stood behind him and all that, right? And yet nobody said crap to him about. Hang on, nobody said crap to him about enabling somebody to stealing $60,000.
Oh well, yeah.
Well, at least nobody from his crowd, right? I mean, nobody cared about that, right? Nobody cared that he unlawfully streamed to my stream or streamed to my channel, and didn't care that he violated, that's the cease and desist, and that he enabled somebody to literally steal $60,000. And by the way, it is $60,000. This has been established, and it is liable. He was found liable for fraud. That's already been established. These are facts and evidence. And I don't know how he's trying to get out of that. It's just like it's already been established. Game over, man.
Game over, whatever. Man.
That's what I'm saying. They're propping him up to be somebody like, hey, look, this guy stole $60,000 from Steve and Bull, didn't get paid, and we don't care because Steve and Bullinator are just poo-poo heads. Therefore it's justified.
Well, these are the same kind of people. Yeah, but these are the same kind of people who make the argument that, we're so for women rights, except for those women over there. They're not really women. They don't count.
The hypocrisy. Oh my God! When are we going to do that show on hypocrisy? That's going to be that's something we definitely got to talk about. Hypocrisy. Oh my God, is that prevalent everywhere? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird because it's very prevalent.
Right, except for you guys.
Yeah, right. It's a double standard.
Well, look. I mean, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but look what happened recently with Nikki. I mean, Nikki is expressing herself on a +18 channel, and you have somebody deriding her as like body shaming her. Who's supposed to be a feminist?
Body shaming?
What the hell? How can you claim to be a feminist and body shame somebody who's on a channel that's 18 plus that you don't have to subscribe to. You don't have to follow somebody, but you don't need to shame them if they're expressing themselves and they're enjoying it. Look, for example, I barely know who that Janelle Evans person is. I know she was on some mom show, but I don't know which one. But, a lot of people send her, TikToks out. She puts them out there to be comical, kind of stuff like that. I don't body shame her for the way her attributes. I may mock her dancing a little bit because she can't dance. But I mean, for a woman to, body shame her, at least she's having fun, right? That's the whole thing. At least she's having fun. But I have seen people women attack and body shame, and it's just well, wait a minute, you're supposed to be you're putting in your pronouns in, you're saying you're a feminist in your bio, and yet you're bashing on somebody for
it's the thing where
come on.
You've got somebody kink shaming and bashing and implying that there's some kind of no consent. And which is a pretty bold claim to make, that somebody isn't consenting to something going on, especially when it's something that you don't have any part of.
If you follow somebody, you're consenting, by the way. You're following them. You don't have to follow somebody. Boy of Ink says for €5, I demand one extra stream for the 1,000th day countdown. You didn't get paid from Garden Gnome. Yeah, we probably will, man. I mean, but here's the thing: he owes the money. That's already been established. I mean, so he's not going to get out of paying. I mean, there's going to be a judgment against him. I'm telling you right now, there will be a judgment against him financially. That's going to happen. The only reason he got a lawyer is so he stays out of jail, because he got a lawyer to represent him for the contempt charge. That's it. It's just probably a fixed retainer. But everything else has already been established. So, but anyways, Chesh, what are we going to be talking about this episode?
I believe we're talking. Hold on, I have epistemic virtues. My tongue got stuck on the word. Well, I don't know.
Epistemology, but epistemic virtues. Do you want to talk about the epistemic virtues, or you want to? Let's do that next time. Actually, let's dive into the hierarchy. Let's just do that today.
Oh, the triangle.
Yeah, let's do that because I put the.
Okay, I don't have the triangle pulled up.
Most of the time. Bullinator does.
Okay, I don't have that pulled up. I'll go get it. Right. Just give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I gotta go get the dog.
All right. Well, she's doing that. So, Bull, you got anything else to add on any of this? Because it's so funny because people tend to forget about you. It's like they can screw me over all they want because, I'm going to have haters for the rest of my life. That's just part of being on YouTube. And but they sure the hell have no excuse to shit on you. I mean, none. And yet they have. They've literally have shat on you for absolutely no reason. And a lot of people, they recognized it at first, but they tend not to remember that any longer for some reason. I don't understand why.
And it's interesting because, all these people saying, well, Steve doesn't have receipts, etc., or I have this special information. There's one person here besides Kyle and Steve that has special information, and that's me, because I was fucking there, people. I was there through the whole thing. I literally was the go-between between two grown-ass men that should have been able to have a conversation but couldn't because Kyle can't communicate. Literally, the guy can't.
Here's the thing. Well, again, I haven't made certain things public because I'm not going to after the lawsuit. But you've seen the evidence. Do I not have exactly what I've said I have? Evidence of a written agreement and verbal contract?
Yes, you do.
Absolutely. Do you think I'm going to sue somebody if I don't have that evidence? But I haven't released it. Why would I? Because, no offense, my fucking haters can go kiss off. I don't need to show them shit. The judge hasn't seen it.
You don't owe them a fucking thing.
That's it.
You don't owe those people a fucking thing. And those people that keep asking for it are the very people who don't deserve word one from us.
Exactly. Because I'm not going to tip my hand, or because we are going to be I'll give you a hint. We are going to be filing something here soon, which is not about the money or anything like that, but there is something we're filing that pretty well puts Kyle's narrative to shame. I mean, it's just anybody who believes in this point, I just think is an absolute fool. But they're allowed to. It doesn't affect me at all. Again, I only care what the judge thinks, and the judge has very been clear that he's going to go to jail if he doesn't comply with the court order. And the lawyer's been telling him, I'm sure, you need to comply with this, and he still hasn't done it. I mean, any lawyer in the world is going to say the judge has said this. This is what's in effect. You need to obey it. Because I'm pretty damn sure all she's hired to do right now is to represent him on the contempt hearing. That's it. Because she's a very, very expensive lawyer. And he didn't hire her for anything when it comes to let's say hypothetically, it got kicked for improper service. By the way, it wasn't improper. We're going to show people it wasn't improper. But let's say that it did. We already have the information out there. We just go for a summary judgment. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's not going to. The only thing that's preventing this from actually going to like the fruition is what's going on in the world right now. That's it. I mean, so
yeah,
and if it wasn't for that, it would have been over.
And him getting a lawyer now is kind of like closing the barn door after the horse got away. It's
that's
just
what I'm
like
saying. It's just for show, and it's just to keep him out of jail, basically.
Yeah, literally. And that's a big maybe, because if I was a judge and he'd done what he'd done to my judgment, I would have a hard-on for him, and I would do everything under the law to put him in jail. I would. I would be like,
$5,000 is just $5,000 is literally what you would pay to do a fixed retainer for a lawyer to represent you in one thing, like just for the contempt charge. That's it. That's all that money's going to cover. It doesn't cover anything.
Are we talking? Are we talking fuck Kyle?
Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, if this was actually had gone to trial, it would have been a $25,000 retainer. But it's not going to go to trial because it is over.
There's no reason for it to go to. All the decisions have been made. What's there to go to trial for?
Yeah, I mean, all the facts are out there. Like I said, just be a summary judgment at that point. But if he would have filed from the beginning with an actual lawyer, he would have had come up with probably about $25,000 retainer, give or take, if it would have gone to trial. And so, $5,000 just gets your foot in the door. So all these people that are just like thinking that they did Kyle a favor, you guys got screwed, man. I'm telling you right now.
I think it's both. They're just doing both.
Yeah, they think they're trolling me, but they're really kind of trolling him at the same time. That's what's funny.
They're trolling. It's Kyle and them are mutually circle jerk trolling each other in a giant circle jerk train.
It's sadder than that, Chesh. They're using him as a pawn to troll Steve, because I have a feeling he's getting his advice from some of them. I'm not going to say names here because you
don't need to.
There's no need to, but he's done a lot of things that just don't make sense from a legal perspective at all. And it's like, why would you do that if you weren't served? If you weren't served, you would just ignore the case.
Oh, it's so funny because somebody sent me a clip when he was being interviewed on a channel, and they sent me a clip of it. And the clip is like 5 minutes long. I counted 6 lies. Like, legit, 6 absolute lies. And I'm thinking to myself, the judge knows this, the lawyers know this. He knows he's absolutely lying, right?
Hi, Mikey.
Like, wow, okay, yeah, Mikey, we're just talking about you. But he's not even doing anything for the court anymore. He's playing to the court of public opinion. Yeah, that's what he wants back. And
good luck.
Well, you know what? No, let them. He might get some of the followers back. Hey, knock yourself out. If you think that he's the reputable one, if you think he's been honest all this time, even though he lied about having a lawyer, lied about having a CPA, lied about having money, lying about paying me, whatever. If you think he's the ethical one, by the way, go watch his stuff. I don't even want your.
I'm gonna laugh my ass off if his lawyer ends up deciding to not take it. The lawyer's like, you know what? Nah.
Well, I mean,
if his lawyer's like, you know what? Nah.
Yeah, because what happens is when you retain a lawyer, they don't go in and look at the case. What they do is they give you a consultation. You go over with them, and they assume what you're telling them is basically the truth, right? But again, any lawyer will tell you clients lie, or they don't tell you the full truth. Now, I tell my lawyers everything. I make sure that, I mean, that's my lawyer has told me he loves having me as a client like that, because I've asked him, have I not given you everything you need in record time? He's like, absolutely. I mean, I need the sign, Steve. I have it signed. I need this. He'll email me. I'll get back to him. And so they like clients like that. And I take his advice, right? I told my lawyer, I will take your advice because that's what I'm paying you for.
Yeah, what's the point? What's the point of hiring a lawyer to help you with that situation if you don't listen to what they're saying?
So it
seems kind of counterproductive.
If you have a lawyer, by the way, who has to obey the rules of the court, and the lawyer is telling you, you need to turn these things over to Steve as per the court order, as per the judge, which is said is in full effect, and you don't listen to that lawyer, there's probably going to be problems. Why'd you hire a lawyer in the first place if you're not going to listen to them?
Chemo makes a really good point. Don't lie to your lawyer and don't lie to your doctor.
Yeah, see, the lawyer's not there to judge you, right? The lawyer, that's why you have a confidentiality thing, right? I mean, because the lawyer's not there to judge you. A lawyer is there to get the facts and help you, get with your case. But if you don't tell them the truth, they're going to be blindsided. I mean, that's just straight up. They're going to be blindsided. And so you can't tell a lawyer, look, I never said that it was 50-50 when you're on audio saying it's 50-50. I have numerous documentations from
video
that it's 50-50. And even the letter to the court that is 50-50. Right? He even said it's 50-50. He's like, I want to retain 50-50. There's no question about that. And again, I have the original email that I found stating that we're going to be 50-50 from day one. I have that. I have it. Like I said, I haven't released it public, but who cares? But there have people
it may or may not come out, whatever. There's more than enough that that's not. Oh, yeah. There comes a point where any additional stuff is just additional. You don't need anybody who's still arguing to say that, well, it's not really 50-50 is full of shit. Like they're just lying at this point.
I worked for a year and a half and made zero money. That's called unjust enrichment. I mean, So I mean, it's just. I think it's hilarious at this point because I said the only reason why this hasn't come to fruition is because of what's going on in the world. That's it. That's the only reason. It's just, you got lucky. Covfefe. But anyways, by the way, Mikey, welcome, buddy. We were just talking about you earlier, so I hope we got you some subs. Cheshire got you some subs, doubled your numbers. Didn't get you the pull that we expected. I wanted 100, but you know what? I don't have this massive army as people think that I have, and half the people that don't listen to me anyways. And so half people don't listen to me, and the half don't care. So I asked the other day on my math thing. I was like, hey, leave me some comments, right? I appreciate, let me know what you like and what you don't like, as far as what you want to see. Do you have any comments on my last video I got, Chesh?
The math one?
Yeah. We got 0 comments.
None? That means you did a good job. People aren't asking questions. They understood what you're saying.
Well, I'll tell you this. I did have my friend Josh, who's a mathematician. He actually messaged me and he actually watched that video. And he actually said that he was really impressed that I nailed it. He's like the way you explained matrix that way was spot on, kind of thing. And I was like, thank you, dude. I appreciate that. Yeah.
I would be willing to bet that one of the reasons you have less interaction on those videos on YouTube is because a lot of your interaction from that video happened on Twitter. If you didn't have Twitter, though, so you had conversations with people about math and explaining and talking about it on Twitter, but if you didn't have Twitter and people didn't have access to you there, then it's more likely that those questions and comments and discussion would have happened in the YouTube comments.
Yeah, that's probably true, but still, I like reading comments, so I mean, I don't get anywhere near as comments as I used to get, but I still.
I do not take YouTube comments seriously. The YouTube comment section has always, in my mind, been just like a cesspool of like the worst that people have to offer. So like I read comments now because I have to, because it's on my channel, and I'm not gonna not read what people are saying, especially when it's you guys, right? I love chat. Chat's my favorite, but I love live chat way more than I love the comment section. And the comment section is just, the comment section, I've slowly begun to enjoy and start loving the YouTube comment section because it's just chaos incarnate. It is just straight chaos.
Well, and that's funny. What? That actually leads into the topic here. There's actually a good segue. But before I get into the segue there, leave comments, people. I mean, the more comments you get, the more actually it helps the algorithm. So leave comments, and especially the math stuff. Let us know what you want to see, because like somebody had said, hey, Steve, why don't you use some kinematics? Now, I studied kinematics. I studied fluid theory, and kinematics can get really complicated really quickly using calculus. But I'm thinking maybe that might be of interest to people. But if I did that, I might actually bring in someone who actually knows physics better than I do. But I don't know if people would have an interest in that, doing like force equals mass times acceleration, and then getting into like the first and second derivatives with respect to position and that kind of stuff. Let me put it this way: can anybody tell me what the real quick? Can anybody tell me what the third derivative with respect to position is? Let me see if somebody can figure that out. Do you know, Chesh?
I have no idea. I lost it. Robert Payne said, those who say it isn't 50-50 can't divide 100 by 2.
Hey, African Goddess. Oh wow, Steven, you're still around. I hope you haven't got off that bullshit religious talk. Shit, I haven't seen that name in a long time. Yeah, that's
He hasn't.
African
Don't
Goddess.
worry, he hasn't.
I actually remember her. I remember actually I was hanging out with her one time, if I'm not mistaken. And it got real bizarre. It got into like what would have happened with like in Africa if the white man never came over, would their mathematics been any different? And I'm like, math is math. It's not based on any type of, had to do with colonization and stuff like that, if I'm remembering correctly. Am I right on that, Effing Goddess? Were you in that hangout?
That's an interesting conversation. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's possible that mathematics might take a different path. Like, it would still be math. But
yeah, but here's the thing. Like, I was going to actually do eventually I'm going to do a hangout on how you could derive natural units. I mean, what I mean by natural units are things that are fundamental constants of the universe. Speed of light.
Yeah.
Big G is the natural unit. And those things are actually ubiquitous in the universe. So if an alien race knew a couple of the mathematical constants, like the speed of light, or physical constants like the speed of light, Planck's constant, h bar, you could actually derive the other ones without even knowing the numerical values. You can actually just do it by what's called quantitative analysis and matrix theory, which, by the way, we went over yesterday.
African Goddess is saying they were not a part of that conversation.
Okay, I wasn't sure if she was in part of that conversation or not. Okay.
Well, there you go. Now we know. The answer is that he's expanded a little bit, but no, he's still talking about the same shit.
Who's the guy? Who was that? I can't remember their names. It's been so long ago. But yes, it is. By the way, jerk is the correct answer. Jerk is your third derivative with respect to position. Velocity, acceleration, jerk, and then I think it's snap, crackle, pop. Am I not mistaken?
Kellogg's Rice Krispies?
Yeah, no, I'm not even joking. I'm not trying to be funny here. It's actually, if I remember correctly, it's velocity, acceleration, jerk, snap, crackle, pop. But and by the way, in order for me to do kinematics, I could do it without using calculus. Don't get me wrong, just by using the parabolic formulas, which by the way are not really parabola; they're actually elliptical formulas. Just been simplified because a parabola is pretty much the same as an elliptic for small distances, even though you have two foci, But to really understand what's going on, you really do have to understand differentiations, because it's always going to be a time rate of change with respect to time, right? Because if you have a two value system, you have on your x-axis your position, and then on your y-axis you have your velocity. So with respect to time, you want to know how you're moving, with position-wise with respect to your velocity. Those are going to be at least two things you need to know for that state of the system. Yeah.
We have gotten way off track.
Way off.
We're supposed. Right. This is not the math episode, Steve.
Yeah, they all kind of. By the way, I got 3 monitors now.
Everything is math.
You see me looking around. All right, so actually, let's talk about this then. Graham's hierarchy of argument. And by the way, this is the segue, because when people leave comments, this I actually have done subconsciously for a very long time, right? This how I respond to people is basically what they write to me. And actually, when he rewrote this, when Graham wrote this, he did so thinking that the higher you go in this hierarchy, the happier you'll be in your conversation, because you're being, quote, less mean, right? And we'll see why, right? We'll see why you're less mean as you go higher in the discussion here. And so when people talk about, oh, well, if you disagree with Steve, he's going to block you. Well, it depends where you're on the scale here, on this hierarchy. It really does. It makes a huge difference. So how about we kind of go over this, Chesh, and start from the base, which is called the DH0 base. That's what he called it, DH0. So let's say I have an argument. Like, well, Chesh, pick an argument. What are we saying? We pick something that we argue, not like each other, but I mean, like
our hot dog's a sandwich.
That was kind
our hot dog sandwich.
That's a little subjective. Pick something that is like actually objective.
There wasn't a 50-50 agreement.
Well, that's objective too, but I mean, how about saying, how about 0.99 repeating equals 1? That's
Steve's math. A meanie poopy head.
That's again subjective. True, but subjective. Let's use 0.99 repeating equal 1, because that's my litmus test. All right, so let's apply that to this hierarchy. So start from the base, Chesh. What do we start off with? The very first scale. If somebody responds to you in this, we'll see how the hierarchy changes, right? So if they respond,
okay. So the first one is name calling. Sounds like you are an asshat. So you tell me that not 0.99 repeating equals 1 or whatever, and I say, yeah, well, you're a big meaty stinky head, and you don't like women.
There you go. So
yeah, but the way Steve talks to women is bad.
You're not a woman, so it doesn't count. Oh wait, so you're not a real woman. Yeah. So if somebody responds to my videos, and by the way, yes, I monitor.
You're a Nazi baby killer, though.
If somebody puts on a video, let's like I said, the math video, and by the way, I do have a psychopath who's been around for 3 years that will go on my math videos, and he's objectively wrong, and I blocked him ages ago, but so he'll make fake accounts. Not obsessive at all, right? I mean, but if you leave a message on my video that says, you're a dumbass, that's going to get removed. It's just, this is the base level, DH0 level, they call this. Okay. And now you can see why those kind of people do get blocked and removed. Why? Because they're not adding anything to the argument. Right. There's nothing responsive to that. It's just a straight statement of an insult or of something along those lines.
Yeah, it's just like like somebody makes a video and then they respond with, you are shit. And it's like, okay, well, who are you talking about? Because there's more than one person in the video. Are you talking about the channel? Are you talking about the topic? We covered 7 different topics. There is no point in having a conversation with this person because they're not actually, they're saying what their opinion is, which is fine, but it's meaningless because there's no it's non-informative. And there's no content to whatever their opinion is of why. Right, exactly. It is what it is.
This is unrelated to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, but this is unrelated. This is from Paul Graham. He is actually a computer programmer, PhD in computer science, that came up with this. He wrote an article based upon this, where he was saying, look, the way you approach to have a disagreement is there's different levels to be had, and the higher you go on these levels, the more agreeable that you're going to have in the disagreement, because you're not coming at them invectively. You're not being pejorative. And I'm not saying we all don't do these things. I'm not trying to say that otherwise. I tell people all the time they're idiots. But if I want to have a dialogue with somebody, right? If Chester has an argument and I just respond on Twitter, you're an idiot, I'm not looking for a dialogue at that point. I mean, it's just I could be dismissed, and I'm fine with that. I really do. I don't want them to come back at me because I'm not interested in having a discussion with you. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever do a DH0 with base level, but I'm just saying if somebody does to me on my video, I'm just going to delete them. Yeah.
I've seen, I don't delete them sometimes. Sometimes I do because I recognize the account, not because of what the comment is. However, I have seen people before kind of take this middle ground where somebody will say, instead of saying you are an idiot, they'll say that doesn't make any sense. And so there's 2 ways to interpret that. One is somebody shutting down the conversation, there's nowhere to go, and the other way is that what they're actually doing is they're asking you to explain it in another way.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That actually is,
which is the difference between what's like a verbal conversation. So if Steve says something to me and I say that doesn't make any sense, and he then says, well, what part? And then I go to explain. It's a verbal cadence that is brought onto written form in social media. So it might not necessarily be somebody. It's the person waiting to see if the other person will actually respond as part of the social contract of communication, rather than they're not actually trying to shit on you. They might be. You might have to find that down the line a little bit. So that's where you would then want to say, grant the charity and say, hey, okay, what part don't you understand? Like, what part doesn't make any sense? And then if they get mad at you or they just say the whole thing, if they can't explain why it doesn't make any sense, then, or what part they're not understanding, or if it's a matter of them not understanding, or if it's a matter of them saying that your logic is flawed, then you're not going to get anywhere with that person. But if it's somebody who says, I don't really understand this part, or can you explain this to me, or this seems to, I did that to Steve when Steve and I were first talking. He was talking about the rules, something about the rules of logic, and he used a chess game analogy. And I was asking, like, I don't think that really makes any sense. And he said, what do you mean? And I said, I don't think the chess game analogy really works. And then he explained, well, it means this in this context. I went, oh, okay, I see what you're saying now. And that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah, well, I had the same, like, for example, the other day, I like 2 days ago, I had an issue with Sidetrain Brunicate, and he and Theoretical Bullshit were having a conversation I was part of, and so Cy has always said certain things, like he says, atheists and non-believers suppress their belief. They know God exists, but they're suppressing it because they want to sin. He said this numerous times, and he basically said, well, that's not my claim, and I was like, dude, you've said this numerous times, so you want to clarify, is that, yeah, I was asking him, I was like, do you want to clarify your position, right? And he's like, trying to put it back on me, which, by the way, he and Cy is predictable.
He does that. He always does that.
He does that. He is effectively an epistemological troll. He is. I mean, I get along with him. He's a friend,
I think he does that on purpose a little bit sometimes.
Absolutely, he does it on purpose. I know he does. No, I'm telling you right now, he does. He knows what he's doing.
Him and Darth, Bo. Darth runs a script. Darth runs the script. Cy's way better at it. Cy is way better at it, though.
Oh, Cy knows his shit. Yeah, Cy actually does know, but that's the thing. He knows the subject material well enough to know how to manipulate it. Darth doesn't. Darth is just an idiot. But yeah, so I was like probing him, and that came out wrong. Somebody's gonna freaking put that in a video. But I was probing for information about what is actually your position here, and he wouldn't tell me, Chesh. He was like, he didn't want to confirm or deny his claim, and I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna assume this then. And he's like, well, how do you justify that? How do you make that claim, Steve? And I'm like, I'm not making any claim. I'm telling you, I'm just assuming this. That's just a statement of a self-autobiographical position. I'm not claiming anything. But yeah, Helios points out Cy's arguments are flimsy, and we know that, right? Cy knows he's not trying to make actual arguments half the time. He's just trying to obfuscate. That's all he's doing, is trying to obfuscate. And some people like that. It's like a challenge. It is good practice. I'm not going to front. Going against Cy is good practice if you want. Yeah. What?
Yeah, just just know your limits and know like what you're getting into. When you're talking to Cy, you kind of know what you're getting into with the conversation. He is nothing if not consistent in the way he approaches conversations. And props for that. It's good to be there. It's kind of like dealing with Kent Hovind. Kent Hovind is good at what he does. He will beat the shit out of you if you do not know what you're getting into, or you don't respect that he knows how to run his script and he knows how to keep on the script and control the conversation.
Decades of practice.
Exactly. So if you're somebody who is maybe a little bit arrogant and decides that, but it's just Kent Hovind, I can beat Kent Hovind, and then you lose to Kent Hovind.
Wasn't somebody
because he didn't respect that he's been doing it forever. Oh God!
All right, so that's the level 1. Okay, so let's move to level 2, the DH1. What does it say there? Chesh? Oh, Chesh is great. She's doxing somebody. Hang on one sec.
I'm doxing somebody. Hold up.
It's actually
we're level 2?
Ad hominem. Yeah.
Ad hominem.
Yeah.
Attacks on the characteristic or authority of the writer without addressing the substance of the argument. So, like we just talked about before, this guy was talking about language, and Jimmy came in to accuse him of being a sexual deviant. Because that hasn't, again, like I said, I don't know if that's true or not, but even if it is true, has absolutely nothing to do with the conversation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, normally, like an ad hominem, when you say ad hominem, they're talking about fallacies. However, when somebody says an hominem attack, that's a little bit different.
Yes.
An hominem attack would be something along the lines of pointing out something personal. You don't have to necessarily say your argument's wrong because you're an idiot. That isn't a hominem fallacy. But an hominem attack, more along the lines of something like I do a show with Chris Attlee.
Why should anybody listen to you, Steve? You don't like women.
Well, same thing. Yeah, I was going to use Chris as the example because he's a politician. If I say, hey, Chris, of course you're going to argue for this and that because you're a politician. Well, that's not addressing his argument.
Or because you're right or left wing or what? Right.
Yeah, it's not saying he's right or wrong. Right. I'm not saying, hey, you're wrong. because you're a politician. What I'm saying is, hey, you're saying this. I'm trying to dismiss his argument, right? By saying, hey, yeah, of course you're going to defend Trump on this because you're a left-winging, liberal politician from Australia. That would be an hominem attack. That's the second level here that they're referring to. Okay. Now, if somebody writes this on my videos, I may or may not respond or delete it. I don't know. Probably not, because I'm probably going to ask them, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Right? Depends on, like if Cheshire said, if somebody said, hey, Steve, you hate women or something like that, you're misogynist or something like that, I'm going to delete them because they're just an idiot, right? Because that's not even in the realm of reality. But if they have to say, hey, Steve, you're wrong because you're philosophically this or something like that, I'm like, well, what the hell does that have to do with anything?
You're wrong because look at who you hang out with.
That's absolutely.
I'm a bad person. There's a large number of people that don't like me, and the only reason they didn't like me now they don't like me for because I'm a shitlord.
Right?
Mostly because I kicked their shit in because they came at me sideways. But the only reason they took issue, Steve's got a lot of trolls. I don't have personal beef with a single one of them. Not one. Because I don't interact with these people. I don't care. I don't have any personal issues with a single one of these people. I don't have a problem with them. I don't have a history with them. They have issue with me. Now they have personal issue. And before it was, oh, well, you hang out with Steve, so why should we listen to you about this? Well, I don't know. Maybe because you're talking about how Steve behaves around women and I'm a woman who hangs around Steve. I mean...
by the way, I have more than just her that are women that hang around me. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, I actually was raised, believe it or not, old fashionedly, and I actually got some shit for that too. There are women out there that don't like have the door held open for them or the chair pulled out. Not years ago, because
Steve and I have had that discussion before because I gave him pushback on that.
It's what do they call it? It's not microaggressions, but they called it something. What did the liberal next door call it? Veiled misogyny or something. I don't remember what she called it, but she blocked me eventually because I asked her probative questions, because I asked her this. Let's say you say, hey, Steve, don't hold the door for women. That's a microaggression or it's a misogynistic, whatever it is. Okay, that's your argument.
See, that doesn't make sense to me, because you immediately run into two problems, and now it's sexist in the other way.
But there's only my argument with her was pretty simple, and this is why I think she blocked me, because she couldn't refute the logic. My reasoning was either you hold the door open for somebody or you don't. Gender doesn't matter, right? Either you do or you don't. Would you agree with that, Cheshire? There are only two options.
Gender shouldn't be an issue.
Right.
It shouldn't matter.
So you agree, though, I either open the door for somebody or I don't open the door. There's no middle ground.
Right. You either open the door and you don't. Sure. Yeah.
Now you are supposedly a female, hypothetically speaking, right?
Supposedly. Allegedly.
If you need time to check, we figure it out. Okay, we just lost half the stream. So if I either open the door for a woman or I don't. Now, you're a female. I either open the door for you or I don't. Same thing, right?
So the thing that I find hilarious about this conversation is that it's such it only seems to be an issue that comes up in America. In Canada, we don't necessarily, in some cases you open the door and let the person go in front of you because it has to do with proximity. How close are they behind you? If they're behind you and it's a pull door, then you step out of the way and let them in. But if it's a push door, you open the door and then hold it for them behind you, and then they hold the door. It has nothing to do with gender. It entirely has to do with proximity.
That's what we do. I do the same thing. But back to my original thing. Either I open the door for you or I don't. If I don't open the door for you, I'm an asshole. If I do open the door for you, I'm sexist. You can't have it both ways, people. The reason why you open a door for a woman is the same reason you open a door for anybody. It's exactly what she said. But you know what? If you're opening a door for a woman because of intent of, I am honoring them, I'm trying to show them respect, that is not sexism. It would only be sexism if I said, hey, Cheshire, you're too weak to open that door by yourself because you're just a feeble woman and you need a man's help. That's sexism. In that case, you're opening the door for the wrong reasons. The action is the same. You're opening the door, but you're doing it for the wrong reasons, right? So you should always open the door.
There is
for the right reasons.
There's definitely an issue when it comes to. By the way, there's an issue when it comes to intent. Now, you can still be sexist without it being negative. So you could say that, oh, I always open the door for women. If you're doing it because they're a woman, whether you're showing respect or not, that's still sexist because you're doing something based on their gender.
Yes,
right?
Again, this is where we disagreed a little bit. Yeah.
Well, this is a discussion about what counts as sexism and what doesn't. So I'm saying it would count as sexist without necessarily the negative connotation because I don't think
toward men, not toward women. If the benefit goes to the woman the man isn't getting the door open for him, the man should be the one bitching, saying, "Steve, why you open the door for Chess, but you're not opening for me because I'm a man?" That would be a better argument for sexism.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the thing is that in that case, it's both. You're not opening the door, or you are opening the door for somebody based on their gender. And if that's what you're doing, then you're doing something based on sex. A sexist.
All right, so let's change the scenario, and then we'll get back to the hierarchy. We'll change the scenario. I usually just open the door for anybody, right? I do. But how about
I think it's just based on proximity.
But how about pulling out the chair for a woman? When you take a woman to dinner, back when, one of the things you were supposed to do is pull out the chair for them, right? It's a show of respect. There's a matter of what's called etiquette. You don't do that for men, right? You do it for the women. Again, it's the intent behind the action, because I was raised that way to show respect. It wasn't sexism. It was the opposite, right? It was that women should be treated with more respect than men.
It was also something that was actually helpful once upon a time, because women would be wearing these big dresses and they would need to pull them. And so they actually needed the assistance.
No, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I haven't thought about that. Yeah.
Right. So it's not necessarily like it might have been something that was, a woman's incapable of doing this, not because of her gender, but because of the clothing she's wearing is making this incredibly difficult. So I'm actually going to assist.
Exact same reason women used to ride side saddle, because they didn't have bifurcated clothing. They had this big old dress that went down to their ankles. Good luck trying to get on a horse astride that way.
Right?
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's not necessarily it's something that has shifted socially from being something that was actually helpful to turning into something that is viewed as demeaning, because women don't need that assistance anymore. Now, if you're at a fancy dinner and it actually would be helpful because the woman's dress is in the way. Same with opening the car door and closing the car door, because if you've got a big dress that you have to pull into the car, which is still a thing, like at a wedding.
I look at it this way. My rule of thumb is this: if you're out with a woman and she doesn't want you to open the door, doesn't want you to open the car door, doesn't want you to pull out the chair, fine. All right, that's it. I mean, then you don't. Now you can decide that I don't want to date this person, but it's their choice.
Yeah.
It's their choice.
It should be a conversation.
Right.
It should be a conversation and an understanding of a social contract between the two participants.
Correct.
You should, if you're dating somebody, you should know them well enough to know whether or not they like it. Now, if you're going on a first date, then, and you don't know, and neither of the people, neither of the individuals involved know enough about the other one, make it part of your first date conversation, or make it a the thing is don't flip out over strangers. They don't know what your preference is.
Oh, I hate that. Oh, I so hate that. I'm telling you, if somebody opens the door for you and you flip out on them, you're the asshole.
Yeah, you're the asshole.
You're the asshole.
Don't assume someone's intentions are negative. Mm-hmm. Now, there is a line there where safety is involved. If someone you've met on a dating website, if you're a woman, and some man that you've met on a dating website offers to come and pick you up from where you live to drive to wherever you're going to go have dinner, that can be dangerous. So there's two individuals here that need to have this conversation. The woman should have no problem saying, you know what, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm going to take an Uber and I'll meet you there. Mm-hmm. But the man should not freak out because the woman is not assuming that you're going to attack her.
Right.
Men get upset.
They shouldn't. Again, you're the asshole. There's absolutely no reason to get upset by that by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I have a rule.
Why would you not want your date to feel comfortable? Right.
Here's my rule of when I'm out. Sweet has to open the door for me. She has to take out my chair. She has to like order the food for me. She has to like actually like eat, sitting on the floor while I'm at the table kind of thing. I make her sleep on the floor kind of thing. It's just how I am. But we've already discussed
I'm a loosey-goosey kind of person, so like if I'm carrying the groceries, open the door for me so I can put the groceries in.
Well, should you do that with anybody?
Yes.
You carry the groceries, you open the door for them. I don't care what your gender is. Either
right, one. Exactly. I am all about the utility.
Right.
I am all about the utility. If the proximity is there, hold the door open. If you think that the person does have some kind of disability or is unable, like they're elderly or they have crutches, hold the door. Whatever. Gender has nothing to do with it.
Your husband says, Chesh, please be accurate. Boys get upset over that, not a man. Yeah, I think Jared's right on that. Is that I couldn't even it wouldn't even cross my mind.
Why do you want to shame a woman out? Why would you want to shame the younger version of your gender?
Well, if I asked somebody else, they say, "Look, I'll take an Uber and I'll meet you there." I'm like, yes. Why in God's name would anybody be upset with that? It boggles my mind.
So the reason, like the mentality behind that, from what I've observed, is that. Why are you assuming that I'm going to attack you? People get upset and they feel like, oh, well, you don't trust me. It's not about that. I don't know you.
Yeah, that shows a distinct lack of emotional maturity.
Yes.
A very low EQ. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to the next one here. I think we kind of beat ad hominem to death, but yeah, that's exactly it. So if somebody comes after me with an ad hominem, that's a high probability they're going to get blocked. Okay. So the next
responding to tone. Ooh, are we familiar with that one? Criticizing the tone of the writing without addressing the substance of the argument.
And I see this one frequently. People, I had this the other day. Somebody's like,
"Wait,
on Twitter,
didn't that just happen in the chat? Like that was kind of like a cross between addressing the tone and ad hominem in the chat. The one you just hid.
Oh, well, yeah, whatever. But I mean,
it's an example in my head. That's all.
I had it happen on Twitter just the other day. Somebody says like, "Hey, Steve, you seem like you're getting angry." I'm like, "Are you tone policing Twitter?" It's like, look, I'll tell you right now, and I swear to God, I don't know how many times I can say this. If I'm on Twitter and I'm actually upset, I will explicitly tell you I'm actually pissed right now. Right? I will tell you.
He does. I've seen that.
Yeah, I'm not even fronting right now. If I don't say that, I am not upset by any stretch of imagination. I don't. Again, when people try to tone police, and people say, "Well, the way you're speaking, by the way, which on Twitter is odd, right?" But I mean, to respond to an argument, this is like if somebody says I'm wrong, and they say, "Hey, Steve, and they leave a comment. I can't believe that you did this video in such a kind of a wishy-washy kind of way." Okay, that's tone policing, right? That's responding to the tone that we did it rather than addressing what we had in the video. This is what it's meaning by responding to the tone, is that they're responding to how you presented something by your inflections or the words you're using, or that
So another good example would be you guys can't have a conversation because you use a word like hate boner.
That's tone.
The immature person here, if you can't handle a word like hate boner, then you're the immature one that can't handle the conversation.
That's a perfect example. Yeah, I think it's a really, really, really good example, actually. When people say, well, I don't want to have a discussion about your arguments because you said fuck. Okay,
I can't have a discussion and don't want to talk to Chesh after talking with her for hours because I just found out she was 17.
Right?
Macabre 5 says, I open the front door for Kebab all the time, and she's still all like, meow, meow. She wants me to walk her to the front gate and open that too. Hashtag me too.
I thought that was your dog. Is that his cat? Obviously.
Kebab's the cat. Kebab's the cat.
Yeah. Sean says, my language gets sharp on Twitter when I'm annoyed. Instead of being academic, I start sounding like a disappointed parent. We don't want that. Now, again, I don't get upset on Twitter. If I do, it's very rare, very, 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 very rare. And I will let you know I'm really getting pissed right now. I'm going to take a step away or whatever. But other than that, I've had these discussions for years. You think some rando off Twitter that is being a dumbass is going to really emotionally affect me? Zero, it doesn't. And WizBiz is funny because he sees a lot of this shit, and even he actually sees it firsthand, and they do it to him, and he's like, it's like, I'm not mad. He's like, oh, it's funny. All right, but that's
also kind of
depends
on how much effort you decide you want to put in the conversation. So somebody might be like, hey, listen, it is reasonable to say, hey, I don't like the way you're talking to me. Could you please maybe show me a little bit more respect in the conversation, depending on how the person is behaving? That's not tone policing. That's asking for like basic respect.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah, I mean, you can't necessarily expect that on Twitter. Depends on who you're talking to, right? So like, you can't expect it from randos on Twitter. But if somebody's like, if I'm talking to Steve and Steve suddenly starts acting like a complete condescending asshole to me, I'm gonna be like, why are you being a condescending asshole?
What was that, Bull?
Oh, I was just going to say that's usually why I block people, because I just don't want to have this conversation with you. It's a stupid conversation. Exactly. It's none of your business, that kind of stuff. I'm not blocking you because I'm mad at you. I'm blocking you because you're not worth my damn time.
Let me tell you, the first three things of this, the hierarchy, the first three levels, none of them give you information why a person's wrong in their argument, right? None of them dealing with the argument. These are all three of these are non-informative. This is why you use any of these three, you're probably going to end up have a high chance of being blocked or dismissed. I do.
I saw somebody asking about why this is a pyramid. I've also noticed that people were asking why this was a pyramid, and it's because on Twitter particularly and in social media, it is about how commonly you see them. You see name calling the most, then ad homs, then responding to tone, then contradiction, and that, like, those are the things that you see, like, quantities.
Yes, I agree with that. Everything on this list, the higher you go, the less you see of.
If I post something out, if I post something out, I'm going to get, and I get 5 people that respond. 3 of them are at the bottom half of that list, and maybe 2 of them are somewhere in the top.
All right, so the first 3.
It happened when I fucking tweeted that Twitter tweeted out that YouTube needed to get their shit together, and I had fucking people at the bottom of that list, and I'm like, really?
So none of these are going to get you very far, right? And so for future reference, when people say, hey, look, Steve blocks anybody who disagrees, let them know, no, Steve pretty much blocks anybody who's on the first 3 rungs of this hierarchy, for the most part. I mean, again, not always, depending on, but the first rung, pretty much going to get blocked. But the second 2, it depends, but any one of these will have a very high chance of getting blocked. Would you guys agree? I mean, do you guys think that's pretty well how I operate?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty consistent. I would say that the only way that would, the only like hitch I would put in there is that interactions don't exist in a bubble. So if somebody is doing these things on another platform and then you get blocked over here or something like that, then even though you didn't necessarily do that.
New person. Yeah, let's say this is like somebody who I've never even heard before responds to me on Twitter or responds to me on a video, and they say, "You're just you're an asshole." I'm like, okay. It's just, I'm not going to respond to them. I'm not going to deal with it.
Half the time I don't even delete those. I'm just like,
that's fine. You don't have to.
That's your opinion.
But it's so funny. They'll go out of their way to message you this too. Like DM, you get a DM, random DM. That says, hey, some random like, you're really stupid in philosophy. Okay, knock yourself out. Bye. I don't even respond to them. I just block them, and they get nowhere. And I'm like, okay, have fun. Doesn't affect me at all. All right. So what's the next one here?
Contradiction states the opposing case with little or no supporting evidence. So like, nuh-uh, you're wrong.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think that's what it means by this. The contradiction here is basically with, like, for example, like evolution and the theory of evolution and against Earth creationism, right? I could say to somebody like Ken Hovind, Ken Hovind can say to somebody, "Hey, look, evolution is wrong. Intelligent design is an actual valid scientific theory, but evolution is not." That's a contradiction if I'm promoting evolutionary theory, right? He's giving you a contradiction, but he's not explaining to you why he thinks that intelligent design is a scientific theory. He's not giving you any evidence to support anything. He's just giving you a contradiction to what you've said, saying, hey, look, evolution is not true as scientific theory, but intelligent design is an actual true scientific theory. That's a contradiction.
That actually goes the other way too. You could have people going at Kent Hovind saying, well, evolution is a scientific theory and has more of a basis than it has a basis in science, whereas special creation doesn't, and you're still running into the same. You've contradicted him, but you're not saying why.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
But you notice at least on the step here, the contradiction step, you're actually giving some refutation to what the person actually is saying.
Yeah, and then again, this is why in some cases this isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's part of person-to-person language versus text language, where a lot of people speak on Twitter the same way they expect to have a conversation in person. So, like I said before, hey Steve, I actually think this, and then you say, okay, well, why do you think that? It's the social construct that doesn't. I don't even think most people realize that they do it, because they're expect to have a conversation on Twitter the same way they have a regular conversation like we're having now.
Well, yeah, and you got a character limit on Twitter. But the one thing with the contradiction is, it's a very weak form of argumentation, right? Because you're not really giving any reason to convince them their position's wrong or why you're right? So you're not giving any kind of convincing argument. It's just a very weak thing. But at least it's a start to where you're starting to address the core issue. So if somebody would say to me, hey, Steve, like the point I'm repeating, you're wrong on that. It's this, right? They give you a contradiction. But you're not giving any reasons why that contradiction holds, why they think that I'm wrong on that, why they think they're right. Yeah, I'm probably going to respond to them. I'd be like, well, you're just asserting this, because obviously it's an assertion, but you're not giving me any reason to accept your position.
Yeah.
Right? So I might respond. I'm not going to block them for that, probably.
Titan makes a good point. Knee-jerk contrarianism. If you're just being a contrarian, or if you're just disagreeing with somebody because of who they are. Steve is a meanie poo-poo head, therefore everything he says is wrong all the time. Now, so here's the other thing. There's an exception to that rule. Keon.
Yeah, he's
However, I am able.
Because he's always wrong.
Well, he's always wrong, but at the same time, he is like the knee-jerk contrarian. He is knee-jerking whatever somebody said about something is wrong or is nefarious or there's like some kind of conspiracy going on because of who's involved. I think what's actually happening.
Yeah, but I think to me, an actual contrarian is a lot more insipid, because a contrarian will take a counterpoint. Just to take that counterpoint, regardless of what they actually believe.
Sure, yeah.
So it's a little bit.
Yeah, well, there's a difference.
I hate contrarians.
I think there's a difference between like doing something like playing devil's advocate to be like, okay, well, what about this point? Or like hypothetically, let's see what happens if we go down this line of thinking. However, that becomes problematic if your whatever you're using or whatever example you're giving detracts or doesn't actually have anything to do with the initial point. Because that can happen sometimes.
And contrarianism can actually lead to good debate, because if you can argue in something you don't agree, if you can argue the opposing view, but then that goes into the other levels here, the ones that are higher that we haven't addressed yet, because if you can argue the other side, then you can be firm in your conviction.
I agree with you, Bull, but I'm gonna put that under sophistry a little bit, because if you could argue against an actual sophist that knows sophistry really well, they are acting as a contrarian of some sorts, right? Because they're using fallacious means to try to persuade you, which, by the way, is perfectly fine when you're a sophist and you're doing it correctly. The whole point of sophistry, when done right, is to basically use fallacious arguments to try to argue, so you get better at your argumentation, right? So you know how to point these arguments out and get around them, right? So nothing wrong with sophistry as a tool back then. But a contrarian to me is there's somebody who just literally wants to argue anything that they can find to argue just for the sake of argument, whether they agree with it or not. And those are just time wasters to me. Yeah, it's not the same as devil's advocate by any stretch of imagination. All right, so what's next on the list?
But my brain did not register. Counter argument contradicts and then backs it up with reasoning and or supporting evidence.
All right, so counter argument. If I said to you, Chesh, the evolutionary theory is true, let me cite you some academic sources and show you the evidence, right? That would be a counter argument. If you're a young Earth creationist or something like that, right? I'm not specifically showing you why you're wrong, right? I'm not refuting your core point, but what I'm doing is showing evidence that the counter argument that I'm promoting is evidential. It has reasons to it, right? I'm not just saying, look, young Earth creation is wrong, evolution is true, because that would just be being a contradiction, right? That's just the previous hierarchy. But now I'm saying that intelligent design or young Earth creation is not the case, but what I'm saying evolution is the case. Let me show the reasons. So it's almost to the top of the pyramid, right? You're almost there. Which is, by the way, this is a really good means to argue. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. So if somebody put on my video, hey Steve, I'm a young Earth creationist, but I'm not going to, I'm not giving you, why you're wrong, but let me show you why young Earth creationism is right. They're giving a counter argument to what my video is. Okay.
Right.
I'm not going to block them for that.
Yeah, no, that's part of the. You shouldn't debase that kind of argumentation, even if you don't agree with the other side, because if you start debasing or making it saying that it's bad for them to do that, you're poisoning the well. You're no longer allowing for even what would be considered reasonable conversation. So if I say that, okay, well, evolution is really well established, blah, 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 here's my reasons for it, and then Kent Hovind goes and makes a video back to me, not that I think he ever would, and says, well, actually, evolution has this hole, and this hole, whether they are holes or not the point, has this hole, and that's why I think that young Earth creation isn't a thing. You shouldn't shit on Kent Hovind for doing that. That's actual argumentation and conversation.
Mm-hmm. I agree
now,
with that. I don't mind
what
that.
you should do is plug his little holes that he thinks he came up with and say, well, actually, da-da-da, and continue the conversation, and then you can actually have something that could be considered a reasonable conversation. But if you just say, haha, Kent Hovind responded to me, what an idiot, why would you even respond
you know
to
what? That's actually the top of the pyramid. Like what you just described is the top of the pyramid.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So what does the top of the pyramid say?
Explicitly refutes the central point.
So if you are a younger creationist, Cheshire, and I say, look, you're claiming this. Let me show you all the evidence why you're wrong, and it's not the case. I'm explicitly focusing on your argument, your central thesis that it is the case that the Earth is 6,000 years old. And I show you all the evidence that's not, or whatever evidence it is, and I'm using citations. That is the hierarchy that Graham's talking about. That is the highest level you want to obtain to have the most efficient, proper disagreement with somebody. If somebody does that to me, I cannot think of one time that I blocked somebody. If I have, I apologize. I catch all. But can I recall any ever doing that? Absolutely not. I just no chance that I think that ever happened. But if it did, I will apologize. But I mean, has anybody ever seen me do that? If somebody has said, hey, Steve, you're wrong on this, let me show you evidence where I'm wrong. I get the same thing like my Gumballs and God kind of thing, my blog and stuff like that. I have had people say, hey, you're wrong. But when I ask them where, show me the evidence, they get it all messed up, right? They're fundamentally in error. And there are some people that have actually said that my logic, like I know Matt Dillahunty knows my logic's correct on that. I know this, but he can't say it, because he feels like he's the gatekeeper to atheism and he would give me too much credit, right? But he knows that there's nothing wrong with that logically. Experts have told him this, right? People, logicians and mathematicians have spoken to him and have said, this blog, there's nothing wrong with it logically speaking. And then, but he'll try to pull this argument. Well, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it logically, but it's being misused. And it's like, what does that even mean? It's like if you're going to say that I'm wrong, you can't just say that I'm misusing something. You have to explain what the misuse is when there is none, by the way. But that's what I'm saying. How you approach my arguments depends on how I'm going to respond to you. And if you just don't show me that the logic is wrong and I'm somehow misusing logic, whatever the hell that means.
Well, yeah, the answer is that you start at the goal is to not start at the bottom of this pyramid.
No, yeah, you want
to start at the top.
Look, you want to start the first 3 levels, again, 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to get blocked, especially if it's on the bottom one. But you don't want to do the first 3 levels because they're not informative, right? Only from
the first 3 levels are ain't nobody got time for that.
Right. And that's a big thing too, right? I mean, do you really want to spend your time wasted when somebody says, hey, look, Josh, you're a mean poopy head? Yeah, you can.
I mean, sometimes. So sometimes I am in the mood that I'm like, yeah, you know what? All right, let's have this conversation. Manya actually had a conversation like that on a in time, or not in time, that time of the month video.
She's one of those. Her own show.
One of those videos, right? One of those videos, somebody just said, "Oh, this person said that I was a bad person," and Manya said, "Okay, but why though?" And then they just went off on 7 or 8 different tangents, and they were essentially saying that, "Oh, because Chesh said this thing," and Manya's like, "But that's not what she said." And even if that was what she said, can you explain da 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 da? And the person went super sideways. And yeah, exactly. So Manya had offered them to potentially come onto the show and be like, okay, tell us what you disagree with, because they were like, oh, she's really wrong about this thing. And it's like, okay, but what is she wrong about and why? So I came in and I was like, that's not what I said. And what is your position? I can't bring you onto the show if you don't have a position. So if you're saying I'm wrong, you need to tell me what your position is. And so, and then it just devolved, and I was like, okay, yeah, this isn't happening.
I do that. I have the same thing. Chris. People were like, "Hey, Chris, I got to tell you all about Steve. Why don't you come in the Discord? We can tell you all about Steve." He's like, dude. First of all, I'm not interested in going to the Discord. And by the way, #Steve was right. I told you guys that the Discord people said it 20 hours a day. I wasn't fronting. But he said, people had sent him stuff, and he's watching this stuff, and he's like, "What the hell?" He's like, "This is not even an argument," And this is what I was saying. He said, "Nothing they sent me would diminish his impression of me by any stretch of imagination." It is like, even if I had a misspeak, or if some people took something out of context, he's like, well, where's the clarification for this? Where's the context to be had here? They couldn't even explain what the context was. And he's like, well, that's not. He's like, look. I got 1,700 videos, right? I mean, I'm not flawless in my elocution. Right, so I probably going to say some things that might be taken out of context. I get this. We all do. Even Chris admits that he's said things that he probably wished he would have said differently. Who doesn't? The difference is I'm not allowed to correct those things and to provide context because of who I am any longer for certain people. That's not how you have a discussion. If Cheshire says something that and by the way, I'm not going to go into specifics of what it was, but if Cheshire says something that's slightly controversial, instead of going, damn, that's this stupid Cheshire. What are you, a complete moron? I asked her, hey,
what are you, a Nazi baby killer? Do I kill baby Nazis, or are the baby Nazis killers?
But here's the thing: you said this, and I go, oh shit, I actually kind of agree with you on that. Right? I mean, it's like, wait, when you ask for context of something, it's because you can't just go by a 2-second clip of what somebody.
A good example is the clip people take out of context about secondhand smoke. That one's probably one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a big one too, right?
That one's hilarious.
Well, they take a lot of things people say out of context, right? And then when you ask them, well, what do you think Cheshire meant by this? Oh, I have no idea. Well, why did you? Really? What are you arguing? And they think we have positions we don't have because they don't understand the context. And then you say, well, that's not my position. And they say, well, you said this, but you're like, let me explain to you something. If I tell you my position, I am telling you my position. If you say, well, you said this, and I'm saying, well, I said that, but in this context, let me explain it to you in a way, and I clarify. Remember the 4 C's, 5 C's, right? There's 5 C's. That's what we mean by this. You're allowed to have clarification. Anybody can have clarification. You're supposed to. This is how you have better discussions. But we're not afforded that by certain people because they don't care about the clarifications. They don't care about the context. They're not interested in having a discussion or disagreement.
My favorite one about the baby murder is that in the video they're referencing, I never actually gave my position.
Yeah,
so whenever that comes up, right? So whenever that comes up, I did it and phrased it that way on purpose. It's not like you don't realize or know these kinds of things are going to happen. So if somebody says that and you ask them what my position is, they can't tell you. They can't tell you because I never gave what my position actually was.
Yeah, but they'll extrapolate. They'll be like, hey, look at Cheshire, man. She thinks if you have a 3-year-old and you just don't want him anymore, you can stab him in the heart and get rid of him because, that's because reasons.
Okay, listen, like, we all know that if you're going to stab a baby, you stab them in the top of the head because they're still mushy up there and their hearts are tiny and it's harder to hit.
This is in their minds what they think you were saying because they didn't ask for context. And by the way, I'm even more hard-ass than she is on her positions on some of this stuff. I like, for example, I am totally pro-euthanasia. I'm pro-euthanasia. If I think the quality of life is such for a human being that is so poor, a person should have the right to self-terminate or assisted termination. And that's controversial.
And listen, if you don't want to, nobody should force you to play tipped Monopoly.
What's that? What?
I said nobody should force you to play. Nobody should be able to force you to play tipped Monopoly.
What's that?
So like where all of the pieces of Monopoly are not in your favor, and like the game is obviously biased and unfair. Nobody should force you to play the game.
I mean, but somebody says, "Hey, Steve, do you really believe that somebody should be able to end their life given certain conditions?" Yes, but you know what? There's a lot of that goes into sussing that conversation out, right?
Well, yeah. What are those conditions? Right?
Well,
there's
doctors. You need a physician.
Yeah, psychologists, doctors, a support system. Blah 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 blah.
Somebody's gonna say, "Hey, look, Steve thinks that somebody should be able to kill themselves anytime for any reason." Bullshit. I've never. That's what but that's what it devolves into, because they don't care about what the actual positions are. They only care how they can use it as a weapon.
Yeah, and there's a big difference between eugenics and euthanasia.
Oh, yeah. Clearly, but even Richard Dawkins argued to some degree about eugenics in some aspect. And by the way, I'm not saying that he was even wrong by it, but people took that and ran.
I'm not saying he's right either.
Go to eugenics. It's like, look, there is a form of eugenics already existing. There actually, so we do test it for the Jewish disease, SciTac. Is that what I pronounce it? Google in here. For the man, what is it?
Are you talking about amniocentesis?
Well, they do it through an amniocentesis, if I remember correctly. It was SciTac disease.
I know they do several things that way. Like there's a Down syndrome test for that. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. Right. There's a whole slew of them, and
viable, right?
And some of them are not viable. Some of them are just informative, like Down syndrome. By the time you can do an amniocentesis and get that result, it's too late to terminate the pregnancy anyway. It's just saying, hey, your child has Down syndrome or has the markers for Down syndrome. Get ready to take care of that person for the rest of their natural life, as opposed to having a child that is going to grow up normally.
I know somebody he says that, if you have a Down baby, you should terminate. No. That's not what I'm saying at all. I have said, though, look, if you're having a child that will not live more than 3 days, right? I mean, you have 100% mortality rate. 100% mortality rate. That child will die, bar none. Should you have the option to terminate? Yes.
Tay-Sachs.
Letty says...
What did I say? Tay-Sachs. I'm a bad Jew.
Letty says Chesh advocates euthanasia to bring the average age of humans down to 3 years. Yes, that's my position.
Like I said, some of these are very complicated, complex types of positions, right? And you're not going to be able to really understand somebody's position by a 20-second soundbite.
I think this is absolutely a conversation that can and should and perhaps will be had by us at some point. One of my actual positions was that having this, a lot of people aren't ready to have this conversation, so I'm not going to I'm not going to have a conversation about what my position is. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to inform you that these arguments exist, but I'm not going to have that discussion up until we're in a position where we can have that conversation. The video that we were on was not the time and place, and anybody who's come to say that I'm advocating the murder of children is an exact example as to why I said we aren't mature enough or ready to have the conversation.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very, very important point to make. There's certain people I'm more willing to have a discussion with, like, Tree Feline. I can talk to her about anything if I had to, because she's going to give me principle of charity. We're going to talk about the context. She understands what I'm talking about. And so that's fine. Godless Scummer, we can have a conversation with. Exploratory Minds, Little Red, Let Limo. I mean, most of my chat probably will have no problem having any of these types of discussions whatsoever, right? They're at that level. Now, do you think, though, we want to have a discussion with people that are so base level that they're not even at the very, very basics understanding of critical thinking and the 5 C's, or having any kind of charity to our discussions? Because if I give a position and they're not going to give me the principle of charity on it to give me the time to suss it out, right? They're just going to take what I say and run with it. I'm not going to have a conversation with that person, because these are complicated issues.
Well, that's a little bit of the one that we skipped, the purple one there, refutation. Finds the mistake and explains why it's a mistake using quotes. So I do that sometimes when I'm dealing with somebody who's dishonest, where essentially what I will do, because again, this is legitimate argumentation. I'm not down at the bottom name calling, which, I do sometimes. I'm okay with banter, though. If you call me a dick, I'm going to call you an asshole, and that's part of, cadence. That's part of the discussion. I'm not saying you're wrong because you're an asshole. I'm saying you are also an asshole. And I'm okay with some banter. If you dish it out, you should be able to take some of that back. Don't start shit you can't finish. But a lot of times you'll get people show up that are dishonest interlocutors, and they are going to be like, well, this person said this and this person, and they'll quote mine. Well, you say, okay, well, where did they say that? Okay, well, you said this over here. So you said that you entered this conversation by having a tone policing by saying somebody can't say the word cunt. Now you're over here saying that you were like iDubbbz before iDubbbz was iDubbbz. Well, if you know anything about iDubbbz, he says the word cunt like a lot and uses a lot of slurs. So how come it's not your initial problem over here was that this person shouldn't be allowed to use this word while you're praising and claiming to be like this person who uses that word regularly?
Well, shouldn't it all be about the context in those things, though? I mean, like, when people say, like, hey, Steve said this, I know for a fact people have asked detractors, well, what does Steve mean by that? And none of them have been able to answer. Because if they actually tell them the context, if they even knew it, which most of them probably don't, but if they did, it would destroy their argument, right? And so they basically at that point, and by the way, I bet you money, most people in my chat have had this happen to them personally. What happens is they end up getting the response, oh, well, you're just an idiot. All that stuff's out there. You should know this. And they end up getting blocked or...
Go find it. Google it. It's over here. Watch these 7 videos that are all out of context.
Right, exactly. And I guarantee it, most of my audience has probably had that happen to them before, because I know for a fact that they have asked, what do you mean? Well, you said Steve does this. What do you mean by this? Or this, that, and all they do is obfuscate.
A lot of people that bitch about my block list forget conveniently that I actually did have long conversations with the majority of them, and most of them blocked me first because they couldn't get anywhere.
That ruins their narrative, right?
Well, what's even worse is when they try to gaslight you on that stuff. Like, okay, well, you're trying to call them out for saying something, and they're like, I didn't say that. You can't find it. And then they're like, so you want me to go through 5 channels worth of 2-hour hangouts of thousands of videos each to find out where you fucking said that when you know you fucking said that?
Mm-hmm.
Helios for 5 says, one thing I have noticed with Chesh is that she starts off high but eventually gets sick of dishonest people and goes to low levels to troll. I do. You're correct. I will have an honest. I will be like, as soon as I figure out that somebody is dishonest, you will see the quality of what I'm doing actually go down, because I'm not. This is a joke now. I'm here for the. I am now here for the meme. I'm not here to have a discussion with this person anymore.
You know what's so funny is the person who probably has had this most happen to them is probably Manya, because she says, "Don't get me started." She has had more people try to, like, at the very beginning, early on, "Hey Manya, show all this shit," and Manya wasn't having any of it because she's like, "This is bullshit." And then they turned on her so badly, and now they just basically mock her for drinking, having adult conversations, me treating her like an adult. They mock. It's like this is how strange they've moved from, "Hey Manya, we really want to talk to you and show you what kind of person Steve is." And when Manya didn't respond the way they thought, they were like, "Oh, Manya, you're just a minion."
So what it was, here's what it was. Let me do a little bit of analysis on this. This wasn't that, oh, Manya just didn't do what they wanted. It's that Manya wasn't going to be told by them how she should feel about her own interactions.
Yeah, they
These
still
people
they still do it to
manipulate. They try to manipulate her and tell her how she should feel and what is acceptable for her to feel as a woman. And then when she tells them, "No, this is my interaction. I'm allowed to feel how I want to feel about it. You don't get to dictate to me what I should find acceptable as an adult and as a woman," they go, "Oh, well, you're not a real female." Or they go, "Oh, well, you drink. Oh, well, you're crazy. Oh, well, you're stupid. Oh, well, blah, 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 blah." These are people who claim to be advocates of women, but they're like, "Oh, well, you're just a child. You don't know, blah, blah, whatever the fuck they're going to go on about."
Yeah, that's exactly it. I don't understand it. But the thing is at least people are recognizing it now. I've known it all along. Boole and I have known this for years. I mean, this is nothing new to us. This is why we really just got away from a specific group of people and never wanted to have anything to do with them, never talk about them, never do anything with them. But still, for 2-3 years,
these are the same people. These are the people who like fucking come in sideways, attack somebody for and like shame their body. Then when 7 or 8 people are like, "Who the fuck are you? Why are you here? And who do you think they are?" run back and say that they're getting bullied and victimized, and be like, "I'm being attacked by all these people."
Steve's fans
Bitch,
are
stay in your own sandbox.
You're sitting there bitching about a picture that a friend of mine posted of her body that she's allowed to do, and you're shaming her. And by the way, I didn't say anything to anybody about it, so I didn't tell anybody, "Hey, go make a stink about it." People that happen to be my subs did make a stink about it, but I didn't say shit to anybody about it.
Yep.
Here's the thing: I didn't, because I was.
You know what I found the weirdest thing with Manya? You know what I found the weirdest thing about this whole interaction with Manya is the drinking thing. Like, I don't know anybody out of that entire group of people that we're talking about that doesn't drink. I don't know anybody. In fact, there's people in our group who don't drink. Red's Rhetoric comes to mind. Red's Rhetoric doesn't drink.
Well, he's a light, because he doesn't take alcohol.
Yeah, he doesn't like alcohol. He doesn't like alcohol, so he doesn't typically drink a whole shit ton of alcohol ever. So, like, when I see people saying, "Well, you guys got Manya to drink," Manya's a big girl. She's allowed to have a conversation and allowed to be convinced that drinking alcohol might be okay if you're an adult and you're developed and you want to unwind at the end of the day.
We never convinced Manya of anything. Manya asked us about alcohol because she knew we drank because we did it on stream, and asked us for advice on how to do so safely. And if you watch any of those streams, especially when she first started that was streamed, she would have a drink or two, and then we would tell her to get water, and we would advise on how much to put into that drink, and at no point is it ever excessive. Golden Unicorn says blocked Chesh first, then wine Chesh blocks them back. Everyone knew her list was a personal list, for fuck's sakes. And then you tell them Chesh for 2. Thanks, Manya.
I think you make a really great point. I've known Manya longer than anybody here. We were friends on Facebook before she ever came to YouTube, and she trusts me, and she was like, hey. If I'm going to be drinking, I want to make sure I do so safely because I've never, so what is wrong with being responsible? And instead of having her go out to a bar alone for the first time drinking, where somebody could actually do something.
We had that conversation.
Right. She's in a safe environment, right? Where, we can make sure she's hydrated, if something happens, we have contact lists or whatever. But I mean, it's the fact that she's being watched over, right? I think that to condemn a situation like that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
Golden Unicorn for 5 says, I am drinking inside my house. I can scream like a banshee into oblivion if I want to. Shaming me for drinking won't work. Tell those effing assholes.
Yeah, I don't understand the hypocrisy they have, because they're all.
Manya's a mad lad.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with drinking. You just have to do responsibly. I'm not a big drinker. The reason I'm not a big drinker.
Here's the analogy. Here's the analogy, because you notice that these people are constantly coming over to our sandbox. Like, they have a sandbox they can go play in, but they obviously don't like it enough over there, so they keep coming over to our sandbox. But listen, don't bring the cat shit that you've got in your sandbox over to our sandbox and bring it to us and show it to us like it's something fucking special. It's not. We've seen it before. We're not interested.
Yeah, and by the way, let me clarify on that, because people are like, well, Steve, you've been drunk on camera before. Yeah, actually, a few years ago.
So have I.
But still, in the last year or so on the Rum and Coke nights, I barely finished 2 beers, right? I mean,
actually, I've been drunk on stream too. The first time I met Godless Engineer, I was drunk on stream.
One of the times I was drunk on stream, which is interesting that they don't go after, it was during Christmas when we were talking about rape apologetics. When I demonstrated that entire group were all rape apologists, I was drunk. I could argue around circles around them while drunk.
Yes, I noticed you were drunk. Guys. I noticed that too. But yeah, I was drunk on that stream. It was on Atheist Ranger's channel, who's very under-subbed guy, but he could concentrate on something new a little bit. Might get more subs. I love the guy, but he needs help as far as what subject matter to cover. But
can't say I'm familiar.
No, he's a little-known channel, but Godless Engineer came on as a friend. This is back way before anything happened, even Non Sequitur show even existed, right? And, we were... I was just sitting there getting drunk, and I was like fanboying kind of a little bit on Godless Engineer, because he is one of the people that actually helped me decide that there wasn't a God. Like, he didn't actually browbeat me into it. He gave me reasons to not believe in God, and I thank him for that. But I kind of I'm a little bit upset over the loss of the friendship with him. I know most of the people don't have it. People either like him or they hate him. But at the same time, it's like, dude, you shouldn't have supported. You should not have supported Kyle. Literally, you made your mistake. And and then you lost to G-Man. So yeah.
Well, the fact that they actively knew they found out he was lying. And they still wouldn't apologize, and which is fine. They don't have to apologize to me. But I mean, I said from the day one, they're backing somebody who's actually lying to the viewers. I mean, straight up just bullshit.
So did I.
Oh, so
I got blocked. I got blocked for telling him, hey, you're being perceived as a liar because you're spreading information that is patently false, and I know it's patently false. That's why I'm telling you, you're making an ass of yourself. And I got blocked for that.
He wasn't the only one. Him and his wife both were like, "Oh yeah, Steve's in this fraud and shit like that." There's literally zero evidence for that, and Bullinator claimed that.
GE,
and they didn't care.
I was blocked by GE when he was the bottom rung of this pyramid. So this was when Steve and GE and Casey were arguing about engineering. And the funny thing about it was that GE and Steve were making the same argument, just in different ways. They were arguing past each other, right? GE was like, I count as an engineer, however, I'm this kind of engineer because the definition is too broad. And Steve is saying, you're not that kind of engineer, the definition is too broad. They were agreeing. So I sent a message to Steve, and I was like, Steve, I think you guys are agreeing. And then I sent a message to GE, like not in private. It was all in public. It was like on the same thread. And I said one to GE that said, I think you and Steve are actually agreeing and talking past each other because you're saying the same thing. You're both saying that a software engineer isn't the same thing as a nuke engineer, and that the definition covers both. And that might or may not be a problem. He said, exactly fuck you, you're an idiot, and you're just a bitch, go away, and blocked me.
These are not honest interlocutors. They don't give a damn about the actual
I never had a conversation with him before this. Golden Unicorn for 10 said, hypocrites for shaming women for being proud of their bodies and being adults, petty nincompoops. We don't have to justify ourselves to these trolls, but we do need to expose their hypocrisy. 2 thumbs up. WizBiz for 2 then says, GE and crew backed Kyle because they hated Steve. No? Yeah, no, pretty much.
I would say it was more because they were too close to Kyle, and they believed Kyle because Kyle was feeding them a line of bullshit. It might have been a little bit of both. Didn't. I wouldn't go so far to say they hate you, Steve. They had issues with your arguments at that point. Because you didn't capitulate and ultimately end up in agreement with them. So.
I'll give you an example. It's like when Casey was arguing to me that in modern philosophy, generally speaking, using justified true belief, that I was trying to explain to her knowledge is a subset of belief. And she kept on saying I was wrong. You're wrong. Belief is a subset of knowledge. And I'm like, look, you're out of your depths here. Okay, you're just wrong. Let me explain to you why you're wrong. And I got so much shit for her from other people. And I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me that I cannot correct somebody who's putting out blatantly wrong information, and you're shitting me on me for this? Because I don't care who she is or whatever she thinks she knows. She's wrong, and she's telling me I'm wrong. I'm going to explain to her why she's wrong. But people are like, "Oh, you're."
They definitely.
Wait, that's better. You're picking on her. She's a woman, and I'm like, conversation's over at that point. Your conversation's over because when you have to bring in something like that to try to argue against me, you're done. You're blocked. I'm not even going to respond to something as asinine as that. But that's what I got. I swear to God, not even fronting.
Yeah, no, they definitely didn't like Steve, at best. At best, they did not like Steve. At worst, they hated Steve. And realistically, if I was going to assess it from the outside, I would say that Kyle lied to them, but they were also egging Kyle on against Steve. It was both. Now, I would also probably bank that they thought they were going to get, when Steve's piece of the pie got taken by Kyle, I was willing to bet that they were told they were going to be getting, or they were expected to get, pieces of Steve's pie.
Yeah, let me address that real quick. Now, I don't think I've ever made this public, so this is one of those things that people, you can believe me or you don't believe me. I don't care. It's irrelevant. It really is irrelevant, no offense. But I'll tell you, and here's the thing, all this eventually will come out. So, I mean, if you want to say I'm lying about it, that's fine. But I actually have it where I had actually asked Kyle specifically, when you're bringing these other people on, do they ask for any percentage? Is it still 50-50, or did you tell them you're going to give them some percentage of that? And the reason I asked him this, and Dave can actually verify this, Dave, did we not talk about me trying to get you 10% of like the merchandise and some other stuff to get you in on the percentages? Did I not have that discussion with Kyle?
Yeah, we did discuss that, and it was the reason I was actually given access to the Teespring initially, because that was supposed to get a percentage of that.
And did he follow up with any of that?
No.
Okay, so the percentages were already there. Bull and I know that we had to talk with Kyle about the 50-50 and then trying to get him 10% of Teespring and working some other things with him. And I actually had asked him specifically, are these new co-hosts you bring in, did they ask for any percentage of this? And he said, no. I had that discussion. So it was 50-50. Again, this is one of like many pieces we have in this discussion. But Bullinator can testify, I was very adamant. These people are not getting percentage of this because we are 50-50. I'm not changing that for these people you want to bring on. You can have them come on, then you can bring, have a new channel or something else, but they're not getting anything out of this financially. And Kyle assured me that was the case. And did he tell you specifically that, Bull? Did you ever
Well, he never assured me about paying others, but I always kind of like everybody who I talked to, from Shannon Q all the way down to Caitlin Chloe, all of them, they basically told me I'm not making any money of this, nor am I expecting to.
Right. No, I don't think they were expected to either. I'm going to go on a limb, and I'm going to say I know for a fact they probably weren't told they were going to get money. I think it was.
I think they probably expected more. Now, whether that was financially or control-wise, or more shows over, whatever more would include that might not necessarily be financially. I think they expected more with Steve gone.
Yes, that I will agree with.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because
says,
in fact, well, I was gonna say that was just borne out because look at the shoddy attempts at having streams after the breakup. Look, of course, the people who were on those streams were like assuming that it was going to be them and they were going to have control over the topics, and it went horribly. It just went so bad.
Yeah. Well, I'll say
Helios.
this. We'll cook, and then we'll do the super chat. I can't say specifically for anybody else like G or his wife, but I can say this in my experience personally. Mr. Atheist knew from day one Kyle had no ability to remove from that channel. He outright lied when he said Kyle had told him that he had the ability to remove him, and he believed him. Kyle probably did tell him that. I'm not saying that. But I know from day one, because we had interviewed Mr. Atheist, we had a podcast, and we had talked about him, and he knew this. We were partners. Mr. Atheist knew this, and he knew that Kyle had no legal right to move from that channel. And when he says otherwise, I will tell you right now, I'm charging him. It's straight up lying.
Helios for 5 says, to me it felt more like they were more friends with Kyle, and they also thought that it was financially beneficial for them if Kyle got away with it. That's also possible too, because it's possible that they would benefit financially, not directly from getting paid by Kyle, but in growing their own channels off of Non Sequitur.
Yeah, well, but here's the thing: they're starting to try to do it again. They're trying to build Kyle back up and trying to salvage his reputation, which is fine. That's and stuff like that. Again, look, if that's the quality of person you want to have your dealings with, knock yourself out. Go for it. I'm sorry, but I surround myself with honest people. I surround my people with I can trust, and I did trust Kyle. I'm not going to front. Maybe I was too trustworthy, but I wasn't so naive that I didn't see warning signs. This is why I kept talking to Bullinator and Red, saying, "Hey, there's a problem here. I am not getting the financial records. I asked him, how are we going to get paid? When are we going to get paid? Where's the CPA? Who's the CPA? Where's the financials?" And Bullinator, did I not even tell you a couple months prior? Hey, I don't think Kyle's being that honest here with the financial records. This is why
we both kind of mutually had that conversation because we both had the signs were there. Like, he hadn't been talking the schedule wise. It was a mess since November, like, hey, can you update the schedule? The only thing on the schedule that was even recurring was Saturday Night Fights, right? And that wasn't even a show Kyle ran. He gave that to Godless Engineer, Team Skeptic, and Fight the Flat Earth.
And so I mean, it's straight up. It's just he's trying to change history, which is fine because in the legal system it's not going to work. But if people want in the public arena to buy into his bullshit, knock yourself out. You have fun with them. Keep them, off my doorstep, kind of thing. Because I'm not going to surround myself with those kind of people. It's just not going to happen again. This is why I love the fact that I met. I've known Chris for a while, but I mean, I have a great rapport with Chris Attlee. Atheist pastor. We have a great rapport, and we like doing over and under politics. I love talking with Fuzz Rana. Right, that's going to be a thing. ATA.
Let me address WizBiz in the chat.
Sure.
Steve's controversy. It has Kyle has stated that Steve is the reason he couldn't get certain guests on the channel, and that's why he wanted to. And to a certain extent, he approached me with that too. He's like, I'm tired of trying to please Steve, and I was like, you don't need to, because if you can't get Aaron Ra, Matt Dillahunty at all, there's a million other, there's almost 8 billion people on this planet now. Almost. It's pushing.
And the thing is this, though, he was egging that on. He wanted the controversy with me and Aaron. He fostered it.
He did. It's not like he did.
I have a question, though, in regards to what Wiz is saying. Because Wiz is saying that if Steve hadn't become so controversial, what about Steve is controversial?
Yeah. That's a very good question.
Mr. Thomason bills me as the most controversial agnostic on YouTube. And it's a joke, and I think she's funny on it, but it's just like, it's a running gag, because what are my positions that are that controversial? Can I ask somebody? I mean seriously, going through the hierarchy of the argument here, right? People saying, well, Steve, if you disagree with Steve, have a disagreement with me. What is it that I'm controversial on? Because the things that I put out, like when it comes like the agnostic and atheism things, are factual. You go look them up; they're objective, right? That shouldn't be controversial. But what positions do I have?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Something that would be controversial would be something like going against trans people's rights, or that would be controversial. Saying,
but you never did
talking
that.
about the difference between like the semantics or the philosophical differences between atheism and theism and agnosticism and atheism. That's not controversy. There's nothing controversial.
In fact, it's philosophy. In fact, if I might point out, when I joined the Great Debate community, that's the conversation I was actually fucking looking for. What is it? Does God exist? And B, how do you determine that information, etc.? Like, how do people come to these conclusions? And if you don't understand how people, like, the term, if you can't even agree on the terms, then you're not going to get anywhere. And Steve was making an argument for the usage of a term, and it's logically sound.
If Steve was making an argument for the usage of a slur, of a racial slur, that would be controversial.
Right, yeah, but he was talking about
positions are controversial when they go against social norms, right? I mean, that's what a controversial would be, right? If I say, look, my plan to eliminate debt is to give every American $1 billion. That's a controversial opinion because it's silly, right? It goes against the norm. Or if I say, look, I'm against gay marriage, I think now that would be controversial because it is not the norm. It used to be years ago that was kind of the norm, back in the 50s probably things. But we progress in society where it's more normative now for people to recognize gay marriage to be every state. Now, most states do have those rights now, right? So a controversial position would be something that is somebody who argues otherwise, right? Who says, look, I'm against gay marriage. That's controversial because that's not the norm any longer because we've progressed. That's right. That's controversial. But anyways.
But here, I have another question though. How do you have a show about people's opinions and talking about like fringe topics and talking about like the more stranger or things that are broader topics that are supposed to be a little bit like that are maybe a little bit more taboo? How do you then have a show and complain that one of the hosts of that show talking about controversial topics is controversial?
It's absurd. It's completely absurd. But real quick, hey, I
was
bringing this up again. Real quick.
Well, I just want to say, if anybody brings up controversy with Steve, I would look at the source of that person. Like, who is that person? What is it they're saying he's controversial about? Because 9 times out of 10, or more, probably 99% of the time, 0.9% of the time, it's all bullshit. They don't have a thing.
Of course not.
It's made up.
Golden Unicorn for 5.
Okay, go ahead and read that, and then I go.
Golden Unicorn for 5 says he is controversial because he talks fast and can't get hang of the volume issues and stream lag.
Yeah, well, we have lag here. It's VMix call because she's Canadian. But okay, so cool. The narrative that they've been trying to run for years, which by the way they never did at the beginning, but they kind of migrated into it. Did in any way, shape, or form did I steal the Great Debate community in any facet?
Steal? It's kind of hard to steal. It's kind of hard to steal something you created. I'm sorry, but we're talking about a G+ group, which is the equivalent of a Facebook page, right? So you might not have created the loose-knit group of people that was the Great Debate community before that, and those people are more than welcome to go create their own group if they don't like the way you run it. But they tried.
Yeah,
but the problem is that if you don't like the way someone's running a page, you leave the page. You don't sit there and say, "Well, you stole this page because."
The problem is,
and the name they never even used, right? The name I've heard once or twice, but they never really referred to themselves that way.
Right.
I liked the way it sounded, and I made something of it. I made the group. I did all that. I put all the work and the effort in. And then and by the way, they never said anything till like a year later when I actually had a channel that was getting popular, and they're like, "Oh wait, why aren't we getting popular? Because you're not doing anything of interest. You're basically still doing the same shitty things that you've been doing for years. You're shitting on people, and that's all you're doing, and that's all they still do. By the way, all they do is shit on people. That's it. And so the Great Debate community, I was the one that created all that. I'm the one that conceptualized it. Did it work out? No, but you know what? It was a work in progress. But they're trying to say that I stole it. What the hell was it a steal? I mean, it's such.
We should
stupid
probably
bullshit.
look to wrap up.
Yeah, I know. The people that have been around a long time know that, though. They were around in those days, and they were in the G+ community, and they're like, yeah. So, like we'll leave this with people. With this, like Bullinator said, look at the source. When these people are saying, "Hey, Steve's controversial. Steve's this and that," what am I controversial about? And they'll say, "Well, Steve said this." Well, what was the context? Well, it doesn't matter what the context is. Well, then you're not a person I'm going to have a conversation with. You're down here.
I also have
level.
seen. Somebody DM'd me a good example, and I think that is actually probably the most example, and it has to do with your guests. Bringing on a guest that has a history. That's maybe, not the greatest history.
Yeah, a lot of people...
But here's the thing. Does that's the difference, though. Just because you have a guest on doesn't mean you are okay with whatever their behavior is. Just because you're talking to somebody does not mean you hold their positions. How do you get anywhere having a discussion with people if you're only talking to people who agree with you?
Didn't we have incels on? And I don't.
Right. I was gonna say, Kyle and Steve had all kinds of controversial guests on the Non Sequitur show. We had Jesse Lee Peterson, Mercedes Carrera. We had white supremacists, black nationalists, all kinds of people. Yeah, all kinds of people on that show.
He's controversial shit. He is. I mean, he promotes white nationalism for the most part. I mean,
right.
I mean.
So it's not it's not a Steve thing in that case. It's a Non Sequitur show thing, and in that case, that same charity that they gave the Non Sequitur show at that point in time should be given to Steve on his own channel. So if you have a problem with Steve's guests, fuck off.
Yeah. Macabre, by the way, Macabre was one of the original members of the Great Debate community on G+. I mean, that's how long he's been around. What does he say? You rather read the super chat?
Oh, he said
for 5, not quite sure. They were butthurt by Steve saying he's the owner of the GDC. For the e-drama, they conflated to the misnomer of their YouTube community with G+.
Right. Yeah. And that's literally all it is. Like they had like I said, it's a loose association of people before he created the G+. And I hate to say this, but it's a piece of software. It works the way it works, and somebody has to own.
Loved everything at first. They loved the idea. They loved my view, but then I started getting popularity out of it, and they were wondering why they weren't.
Somebody has to own the G+.
They get popular for the wrong reasons, but whatever. I don't give a shit if they get popular or not. It doesn't bother me.
Right,
but they were
somebody.
Yeah.
Right, they were butthurt.
Once we get back, it's the same problem with Non Sequitur Show. Once we get the channel back, one of us is going to have to be the owner of the channel. Who's going to get butthurt over that? Nobody.
Right.
It doesn't matter.
Because everybody's going to have the same rights to manage it. So, yeah.
So, I mean, again, this is.
Apparently I butchered his super chat. Did I? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did.
You kind of did.
Not quite true. They were butthurt by Steve saying he's the owner of the GDC. For E-Drama, they conflated the misnomer for their YouTube community with G+. Exactly. I'm the owner of the Great Debate community.
Sorry.
Meaning that I have the web page. I started that. I started the G+ community, which I'm the owner of. When I said I was the owner of the GDC, literally I was talking about the owner of the G+ community. I mean, that's anybody who says it says owner on it. I mean, but look, if they wanted,
quite literal,
and they did, and
all hail God King Steve.
You know? But anyways, it's just funny to me any longer. I can't even take it seriously.
Start at the top of the conversation. Here's what I do with this triangle. I want to go back to the triangle real quick. I start at the top of that triangle, and if somebody starts at the bottom, I will meet them at the bottom eventually.
Yeah, exactly. They start up down here. She'll like to scale down the pyramid.
Usually, as soon as I'm done kicking the crap out of somebody with like good tactics and like good argumentation, there's no point in doing that good argumentation anymore. And now it's a joke, and so I start working my way down the pyramid of just having a good old time. It's like sledding.
Well, and here's the stupidest part. Ownership of the G+ is moot because G+ is poof, gone. It's not even exist anymore.
I mean, I still have the owner of the because I have my webpage, thegreatdebatecommunity.com, is my actual domain, right? So, but I mean, like I said, I was going to trademark it. I don't care at this point. People want to use it, knock yourself out. It just basically, my name's always going to be associated with the Great Debate Community. It's just the way, it's been around for years. I've been having the domain, and that's my 3 a.m. philosophy.
Letty says you should give ownership to Puck.
But if somebody wants to use the name, I really at this point
it's not a pyramid. It's a triangle. It's flat. It's not in 3 dimensions.
All right, guys, we got to wrap this up. I think this was fun. I like these types of going over things, dealing with arguments, because I think they're really informative of why we do what we do. And how we respond to things. So when people say, well, you disagree with Steve, he blocks you, ask him where on the pyramid they are. Seriously.
Where are you on the pyramid?
Where on the pyramid are you? Because if you come at me at the top and you have a really good argument about why I'm wrong, I'm not even going to listen. Not only going to listen to you, I'm going to praise you and be like, holy shit, you're right. And by the way, this happened the other day. Like, I'm doing my math video. And I think even let Limo had pointed out on Twitter, but then he recognized that we fixed it. But like, and Trade Field Line was like, hey Steve, you made a mistake here, right? But instead of saying, hey Steve, you're an idiot, right? It was like, hey Steve, you made a mistake here. This is why it's blah blah blah. And I go, oh yeah, you're right, and I fix it, right? Because she started at the top of the pyramid. Steve, you're wrong. This is what it is. Let me show you why. What it's supposed to be. Blah blah blah. She didn't start at the bottom, right? This is the difference. This is what we expect. Start near the top. You don't have to obviously start at the very top, because some people say, look, you're wrong on this, whatever reasons, but don't start at the bottom if you want to have an effective dialogue.
Golden for 2 says Steve thinks he deserves credit. He is a narcissist.
Exactly, yes. Yeah, we're gonna have to do that one of these days, Manya. Listen, we're gonna have to get a psychologist, somebody probably. But if you ever go over what a narcissist is, nobody I associate, myself, Cheshire, Bullinator, Reds, none of us, I think, even ticked one box on that. Not one.
What are the odds if we start actually referencing this triangle on Twitter that trolls are going to say we're all part of the Illuminati?
Well, my production company is Naughty Illuminated, so...
Confirmed!
Confirmed.
There you go.
Let's get out of here.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching this. I guess I'll see you on Wednesday with Over and Under with Chris Hatley. And Chesh.
And you'll see me tomorrow on that time of the month.
There you go.
Over on my channel.
Yep.
All right.
And you'll see me everywhere. Bye.
We'll get
Bye.